Season of Discovery right now, I think, is in a much better spot than it was in Phase 2. And I think a lot of that has to do with the game just being easier, but maybe another more specific thing that people would have more agreement on is that when the game has aligned strategies between the highest level players and the lowest level players who are able to successfully complete content, I think quite often it makes the people in Raid enjoy their positions more. People say that they like dealing with mechanics, that they find it really enjoyable and they want to learn how they work with their teammates, their friends, guildies, whatever you want to call them, and grind through it and come out on the other side successful. And I don't think that this is true with the way most of the mechanics are made in Season of Discovery. An example of this would be Shade of Eranikus. Now, on this fight, let me talk about a few mechanics. You can double check these later if you want, but these are correct. Once the guys who spawn the acid rain enter the field, every 15 seconds, two more spawn. They have 17k health each. Let's pretend they have 15k health each because it makes the math easier. Every 15 seconds, 30k worth of ads spawns, and these ads have an ability that can hit your raid for a lot of damage. That's not a lot of DPS requirements to keep them permanently under control. You could take a very bad group and have 8 of your players only focus on them. You could have a single warlock in your group that their job is to, every 15 seconds, tab target and put Cursed Tongues up on these two guys. What would that do? Cursed Tongues is a 60% cast reduction. So to turn the 1.5 second cast, which is nearly impossible for a bad player to kick without doing just kick duty, into a 2.5 second cast, which almost anyone can kick. Why do I say a 1.5 second cast is bad? Because this is what it means. Let's assume that you want to use all your globals because you want to do decent DPS. Makes sense, right? And let's also assume that your kick is on the global cooldown. Reasonable so far, right? Let's say you have a 300 millisecond reaction time plus server latency. That is assuming you're actually pretty good at the game. Honestly, it's probably worse than that. What would this mean? Well, it means this. You can very easily activate your global cooldown on a damage move during the cast for Acid Rain, and then your ability to kick it becomes 0. Now, if instead this mob had a 2.5 second cast because you did some boomer strat and had your warlocks put Cursed Tongues up, well, it wouldn't really matter. You'd have a whole second while you're on a global cooldown to recognize what's going on, and then an additional second to actually react and kick. I think that taking down Shade of Eranikus in pugs and in bad guilds is actually very easy if people try to decompose what's going on in the fight and handle those individual parts. So let's take it from the top. You get the boss to 70% health. You have a range stack. They're stacked together because 3 people who are at a distance get targeted with this shit that spawns clouds. That's why you have them stacked together and you have them move around, okay? So that way you can control where the stacks are and it doesn't take up the whole room. Easy peasy. Mob spawn every once in a while that you can kick, the big hulking guys. It's like dream walkers or something. You know, they look like football players or whatever. You kill them. It's no big deal. There's going to be whelps. When the whelps come, it's like 6 of them every 10 seconds. They have 8k health each. You have the healers go in melee range, so that way the whelps naturally path to the melee. You cleave them down. Maybe you put a couple people just on the whelps all the time. Okay. So what have we kind of found so far? If you take half the raid and you make their whole job just focusing on ads, this fight basically has no mechanics because you'll constantly have all the ads dead. Why doesn't everybody just do this? Because it's fucking uninspiring. Because it sucks. It's boring. Like, what's your job in raid? Your job is to hit tab and target these whelps and kill them and do next to no damage. You want to be the guy who's hitting the boss, doing all the damage, getting to actually get into the groove of the base mechanics of the game. Like, WoW kind of feels like a rhythm game, you know? You have the global cooldown, you're acting around, you're kind of like playing to the beat. No matter what your class is, there's literally like a beat. There's a rhythm you're playing to. If you're on this ad patrol duty, oh, it sucks. Or imagine you're the warlock that has to put up Cursed Tongues every 15 seconds. What's that going to feel like? I don't know, like Shadow Ball, whatever the fuck else you guys use. Oh, here, tab, Curse of Tongues, tab, Curse of Tongues. And you have to be ready for it right then when they come out because the mobs can start casting Acid Rain within a couple seconds of them getting out. So if you're late, you can really screw things up. So it's like that Warlock trying to put up a debuff. It's a not fun job. It's stressful. You screw it up, you're a clown. You get it right, like, of course you got it right, dude. It's easy. You're the guy on the whelps, like, you're chasing whelps around. They're coming to you because a healer's standing next to you. You hit them, you hit tab. Your uptime is terrible because you're constantly switching targets. It feels nasty, like, ugh. You're a ranged player. It's like you're playing a shitty version of a platformer. You're just moving every through a few seconds in this big stack of other players around the room while like gas gets poured around you. It's boring. That's the way a bad player would handle this fight. A bad guild would handle this fight. It's uninspiring. It sucks. It's no wonder that the meta hasn't shifted to people playing like this. And instead what happens is if your guild can't blitz the boss like a really good group and kind of ignore the mechanics and just kick a few of the first acid rains and then focus the boss and pop AoE fears and just tunnel him down, your guild just decides, oh, we can't do this. If your pug can't do that, you decide, oh, we can't do this. And you call it a 6 out of 8. It's because it's not fun to actually handle the mechanics the right way. It's fucking boring. It sucks. It is not cool. It really sucks. A big thing that sucks about it is that some of the raid, if you're doing it in this boomer way that I'm suggesting, where you have half the raid on ad patrol to trivialize the ads, some of your raid gets to do it the fun way. The rest doesn't. Let's think of a fight like Four Horsemen. What's a good thing about Four Horsemen? If you do it the Zerg way, everybody gets to have a lot of fun. If you do it the boomer way where people have to rotate around and you have all this fancy magic of the tanks taunting and, oh, I got a taunt resist, and oh, can you pop a taunt CD? No, dude, don't pop a taunt CD because then he's going to chase after you. The whole raid gets to enjoy the suck together. There's a lot of mechanics in Sunken Temple that are really not all that fun for people to engage in. Classic WoW players think they want to deal with mechanics. No, they want to deal with mechanics that have like the illusion of being a mechanic. Think about a fight like Kel'Thuzad. Man, what the fuck is going on? People get ice tombs and you hit them with an instant cast spell so they don't die. Okay. You're in little stacks so that way the melee don't all get hit with an ice tomb at the same time. Okay. The range spread out, kinda, so that way at least only 2 or 3 people max are going to get hit with a tomb because people always fuck up the spreading out. And then there's these frost bolts that hit everybody. Some ad spawn, you usually don't have great assignments on how the priests take care of it, and you're like, you count them, like, okay, that was 1 shackle, that's 2 shackles, that's 3 shackles. It's like there's not actually any mechanics at all in one of the hardest fights in Classic WoW, but people are like, that's an awesome fight, Nax is awesome. Dude, there is basically no fucking mechanics, and the way that you handle that fight in a really good group or in a really bad group are nearly identical. And most people get to just kind of like hit the rhythm of their DPS rotation. I think that this is a big failing of Season of Discovery. It's really easy for people to say that they want mechanics. They're not going to be specific. They don't understand what they like about the game. They don't get that there's kind of this beat, this rhythm to the way you play and how there's rotations, you know? It's not like back in the day when people wouldn't even know their rotations very often. Like, did any of you guys look at Elitist Jerks when you were kids? Like, I did, and I remember that simply looking at Elitist Jerks and using the wrong hunter macro. I was supposed to use the if you know about hunters in TBC, I was supposed to use the 1-1 rotation macro because I had a 3-speed crossbow. I fucking used the variable speed one. Or, sorry, I was supposed to use the 3-2 because I had a 3-speed crossbow. I was using the variable speed macro that took an attack time as an input. Used it the entirety of TBC, which made my DPS about 30 or 40% lower than it should have been, and I was like the top DPS in my guild simply because I would read Elitist Jerks thread and use a macro, the wrong macro. Back then, you were able to have fun just screwing around. It was like a highly creative experience, and you didn't have this feeling of this beat and rhythm to playing the game. We can't get that now. Everybody wants to do their stuff kind of right. They want to be able to hit the keyboard and have this kind of rhyme and reason feel to it, and they don't want to actually sit there and really think about the boss and be like, okay, well, like, how are we going to move around and talk about it? Why would you want to do that? There's content creators out there fucking telling you how the fights work. So sadly, even if you do great analysis yourself, it's going to feel like it's stolen from you because somebody else is going to say, well, you know, like, I saw a YouTube video and it said that. I think that sucks. I think that they should make it so that way if there's mechanics on a fight, they funnel all players into similar strats. Okay? We know that the best players are going to find ways to have really high uptime and blitz through bosses. Maybe don't put in DPS checks because they're not going to really impact the best players. They're naturally going to try to do a ton of DPS. And there's not raid wide cooldowns that kind of make DPS checks feel cool. Like in TBC, it's kind of neat that you can time your heroes to unfuck parts of the fight that your guild has a hard time with. It's not really a thing in Season of Discovery. I think that if a DPS check means that just the players should continue doing what they normally do, but better, what? Like, what's going on? I'm basically calling the 40% phase on Eranikus a DPS check. If you want to do it the way that's fun. If you don't want to have half your raid be on stupid ad patrol. I hope that at level 60, they keep it light on mechanics. Because if you keep it really light on mechanics, you're going to naturally make everybody have the same experience. I want you to think about this one last fight before I end the video. Valistraz. Do you agree that it's basically a tank and spank for Living Bomb? And it's just wrapped up. You know, it's the same as the Baron Geddon fight, except for one thing. The tank dies if you don't kill the boss fast enough, which basically doesn't matter because everybody kills the boss fast enough, right? There's a lot of fire on your screen and this dragon's yelling, and other than that, it's a tank and spank. And it's one of the most beloved fights in the game. It's so easy to make an awesome fight if you don't try to get highly creative with it. That's what I want to see in Season of Discovery for the next phase.